1 year later, the original realm was a complete world. The heavenly path no longer lacked anything. All life was thriving. The divine prefecture, heaven realm, world of Buddhism, and even the dark world had combined with the original realm. They took up vast territories in the original realm, becoming superforces. They had originally developed in the original realm, and when Futian had become the path, he had enveloped it all. Now, the realms all agreed for them to form a great world together. Nowadays, the world had many superforces. The heaven realm was ruled by the string emperor and book deity together. There were many gods below them. The Donghuang imperial palace was ruled by Donghuang Diyuan and had many great emperors under her. The spirit mountain was still managed by the Buddha and had many Buddhists under him. The Ziwei imperial palace was ruled by the old forces of the Ziwei segmentum. Four Corner village was a force that had belonged to the divine prefecture but now separated from them. They were independent of the divine prefecture and ruled by Futian's four main disciples. In the dark court, Qingyao inherited the position of the new dark sovereign. There was another new superforce, the heavenly mandate court. It was governed by Gu Donglu and also had many strong figures of the great emperor plane under him. The heavenly mandate court was situated in the original heavenly mandate realm, and they ruled the former 3,000 realms of the Great Path, which was the homeland that Futian had grown up in. They were like the 8 legions of the former heavenly path, known as the 7 great forces of the current heavenly path. The legion members who had participated in battle with Futian back then who had not died all became the core members of the various great forces. They were all being trained as future great emperors. However, what was regretful was that the heavenly path had gone still. It had not appeared again after the battle between Futian and the human ancestor. Nowadays, news of the battle from a year ago had already spread throughout the world. Futian had become the path, which was why they now had a new world. In the last moment, the human ancestor had returned everything to nothingness, destroying everything, including Futian's consciousness. In the most critical moment, Futian had sent Yu Sheng and Qingyao out of that dimension. At the same time, he and the human realm were destroyed together, ultimately turning into the void. However, Futian had already become the path. He was one with the heavenly path. As long as the heavenly path was not destroyed, Futian would not die either. Some people guessed that only Futian's consciousness had been wiped, but he was still there within the heavenly path. Others guessed that Futian was only in slumber and would awaken one day in the future. No matter what, everyone in the world was filled with gratitude toward Futian. The battle from 1 year ago was like an apocalyptic battle. The beings of the world had been turned to ashes, and countless cultivators had died. If Futian had not stopped this, the human ancestor might have truly destroyed the world. Futian's sacrifice for this had been to become the path and protect the present world. One could say that Futian had created this new world. Thus, the Heaven Court, Donghuang Imperial Palace, and other forces called the present world the Futian era. Last year had been the first year of the Futian calendar. The top 7 forces of the world all believed in Futian, and the people of the world were also filled with gratitude, so naturally, no one objected. They all accepted it. The current era was a new age. The period after the heavenly path had collapsed became known as the Age of Forbidden Gods. With Futian as the heavenly path, it was a new era, and the Age of Gods had reappeared. Within 1 year, the various realms gradually recovered their liveliness. Under Donghuang Diyuan's rule, order returned to the divine prefecture. The 18 domains of the divine prefecture all had new rulers. Many of them were strong figures of the great emperor plane. Of course, those who once had conflicts with Futian had all stepped down from power. The great emperors of the ancient god clans who had not died in battle had all been dethroned by Donghuang Diu. 2 huge statues stood atop the steps of the Donghuang Imperial Palace, rising into the sky. One was Donghuang the Great. The other was Emperor Qin. The twin emperors were now guarding the Donghuang Imperial Palace as statues. Today, a few gods came to visit Donghuang Diyuan, but they were met with a closed door and did not get to see her. Donghuang Diyuan was rectifying and revitalizing the divine prefecture. She had given the order to make the martial arts of the divine prefecture prosper. After working on all of this, she rarely appeared in public. At the moment, Dong Huangdian was in the great emperor courtyard of the imperial palace. She sat quietly and listened while an elder sat on the ground beside her. He was telling her stories from many years ago. That boy was both smart and mischievous back then. The older disciples all protected their little brother. Thinking back now, that must have been the best times, the elder said with a smile. He was Mr. Du, whom Dong Huangdian had brought back to the divine prefecture that year. Then what else happened? Dong Huangdian asked. Your Majesty, would you still like to hear? Mr. Du asked. The Majesty in question was sitting on the ground, her eyes flashing brightly. She seemed to be curious about these ancient stories, wanting to know everything. She did not seem like the current ruler of the divine prefecture at all. Yes. Dong Huangdian nodded thoughtfully. Sure. Mr. Du chuckled and continued telling those ancient stories. The main character of the stories was an 18-year-old boy. That era seemed to be long, long ago. Outside the original realm, in the void, a cultivator suddenly came to a stop. Divine light flashed on his body, and he had a shocking aura. This was a super great emperor from ancient times. Should have lost her, right? He thought inside, cold light flashing past his eyes. But right at that moment, a dark figure appeared out of thin air. The void became even darker. A young girl's face appeared. There were no emotions in her eyes, as if she was one of the living dead. Seeing her appearance, the great emperor's expression changed in shock. Everything is in the past, he said. Back then, the human ancestor had controlled everyone, and we were forced to participate in the battle. Why must you kill us all? The girl reached out her hand. An illusory black lotus shrouded over the other's body. In an instant, everything returned to deathly stillness. All the vitality of the great emperor from the ancient times evaporated instantly, returning to stillness. He fell quiet and then was swallowed by the black lotus until he turned to nothing. After killing him, the girl's figure disappeared into the darkness. In the battle back then, Yi Futian had sent her and Yu Sheng out of the human realm. The human realm had been destroyed, and after that, Yi Qingyao and Yu Sheng started on the path of revenge. They killed practically all of the ancient great emperors who had participated in the battle. But even so, Yi Qingyao was still not satisfied. She wanted everyone to pay. Thus, those who had escaped would forever face her pursuit. The Heavenly Mandate Court controlled the 3,000 realms of the Great Path and was situated in the original Heavenly Mandate realm. The Heavenly Mandate Academy was under their control. This was where the Heavenly Mandate Court trained their juniors and disciples. In addition, the current 3,000 realms of the Great Path was nothing like before. They would evolve soon. There was no reason other than the cultivators who had followed Yi Futian out before had all returned. Many of these people were strong figures in the Great Emperor Plane. Now that they returned to their homelands, they did not only return to cultivate. They were also responsible for teaching the path. Yi Futian becoming the path had created this new era, so they would also contribute their strength to the current world. Lord Taishan, Emperor Nan, and many others returned to their original places to teach the path. In addition, Do Zhao, Xiaomuyu, and the others cultivated in the 9 supreme imperial realms while taking up the position of elder in the Heavenly Mandate Court. It went without saying how powerful the 9 supreme imperial realms were. At the same time, in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, Emperor Xia had also returned to Emperor Xia's realm, continuing to sit on the royal throne. He had wanted to pass it on to Xia Qingyuan, but Xia Qingyuan disagreed. Thus, a legend began to spread in Emperor Xia's realm that the princess of the realm was now a strong figure of the Great Emperor Plane. Over this past year, it was said that Xia Qingyuan had saved many people. She was the god of life and could revive people from death. In addition, there was another sword emperor in Lihan Palace, sword master of Lihan. One could imagine how strong Emperor Xia's realm was. Furthermore, Emperor Xia's realm also had the 9-state continent. According to legends, that was the homeland of Yi Futian, the master of the heavenly path. Do Zhan and his group also returned to their homeland and rebuilt the ultimate holy palace, continuing to teach the path in the 9-state continent. Even the sword saint returned to the eastern barren territory, returning to the cottage of Book Mountain. 4th and 5th brothers returned as well, accompanying the 1st brother. 2nd sister and 3rd brother stayed in the Heavenly Mandate Academy to govern the entire Divine Prefecture, so they were unable to return. They could only visit occasionally. The sounds of book recitations streamed out of a classroom in Qingzhou Academy of Qingzhou City. The youths were reading and writing in one of the classrooms. There was an extremely handsome middle-aged man at the lecture podium, though he already had white hair. "The lesson ends here," the man said now with a smile. "Yes, teacher." The youths stood up and bowed. Then a mischievous boy asked the middle-aged man, "Teacher, is the person in the legend you told us real? If I cultivate to the pinnacle, can I really move mountains and fill the seas?" "Not only will you be able to move mountains and fill seas, you can even become the sun and moon," the man said with a smile. "Teacher, have you seen it before?" someone asked. "Of course. One of my former students could do it," the man said, chuckling. "His one eye could turn into the sun and the other could turn into the moon. He could spit out divine thunder from his mouth." Hearing his words, uproarious laughter filled the classroom. "Teacher, you're so imaginative," a youth said while laughing loudly. His voice was innocent. "You're bragging too much." "Then teacher, where is your student now?" a girl asked innocently. "He is omnipresent," the middle-aged man answered. The younglings obviously did not believe them. Even though their teacher was very attractive, his words were too exaggerated. "Sister Nianyu," someone called to the figure outside the school. Huan Yanyu smiled and nodded. The children all swarmed over, surrounding Huan Yanyu. Hua Fenglu chuckled and then left the room alone. Outside, a white-haired elder looked at Hua Fengliu's backside with ineffable respect in his eyes. It was even reverence. As the helmsman of the Qingzhou Academy, he had heard some legendary stories, while Hua Fengliu's student was the creator of these legends. Nowadays, the teacher had brought his daughter back to Qingzhou Academy to teach the younger generation of disciples. He naturally understood what kind of honor this was. But could he still create another legend in the future? It was probably impossible. Perhaps, this was also the sustenance of the soul for the teacher. There was a simple residence beside Qingzhou Academy. Rich vegetation grew beside it. One of the trees was more eye-catching than the rest. According to the people of the academy, no one had noticed this tree before. It had not been attractive at all, but one day, it suddenly grew into a tree that reached for the sky. It was extremely leafy, and when a breeze blew past, the branches and leaves swayed as if they were alive. At the moment, graceful music streamed out from under the tree. It was lovely to the ears and every note pulsed, seeming to be full of emotion. The woman playing the instrument looked perfect and flawless. She seemed to be otherworldly, like one of the 9 heavenly maidens, not mundane. Right then, another woman came out of the academy and came to this side. It was Huan Yanyu. She stopped and sat on a stone, supporting her chin with both hands. She listened to the music quietly. As if entering that beautiful artistic conception, a gorgeous image appeared in her mind. In the image, there was a peaceful little city, a beautiful lake, and a small boat swaying in the lake. A young man and woman were on the boat, hugging one another. Moonlight showered down, illuminating their bodies like a beautiful painting. A long while later, the music gradually stopped. The performer, Hua Jiyu, had a faint smile in her eyes. Her smile was extremely brilliant, as if she had put herself in the artistic conception. 1 year ago, the String Emperor had wanted her to rule over the Heaven Court, but Hua Jiyu left instead. She returned to her homeland, Qingzhou City. Their most beautiful memories were here. After arriving in Qingzhou City, Hua Jiyu naturally discovered this large tree. She could sense Yi Futian's aura from this tree. She knew that Yi Futian must have come back here too. Ever since then, Hua Jiyu built a yard here and would play her qin under the tree every day, living a life of seclusion and peace from the world. "Sister," Huan Yanyu called with a smile, "do you think brother-in-law can hear your playing?" "Of course he can." Hua Jiyu nodded seriously. "Then he must be very happy too, knowing that you think of him so much every day." Hua Nianyu said, laughing. Hua Jiyu chuckled and said, Nianyu, you do not have to visit me every day. I feel peace here and I am content. She did not feel lonely while playing her instrument here every day because she knew that Yi Futian was here. Okay, I got it. Hua Nianyu nodded with a smile. She visited every day because naturally, she was worried that Hua Jiyu would feel lonely or sad. Even though she also felt sad, she never revealed it before her sister. She hoped that her sister could be happy. Please reading on Maibo X and Ovel.com. After Hua Nianyu left, Hua Jiyu continued to play her music. The pulsing music notes were like songs from heaven. They streamed into the tree, and the leaves on the tree rustled, seeming to dance with the music. But right then, the music came to an abrupt stop. Hua Jiyu looked to the front and saw a figure float over before her. It was also a beautiful woman. She landed softly, her eyes staring at the tree. She walked forward slowly, moving step by step toward that tree. When she stood under the tree, there were already translucent teardrops in the corner of her eyes. The woman reached out and touched the tree trunk. Is it you? She asked, voice trembling. Hua Jiyu watched this all quietly. Her gaze fell upon the woman who had arrived, and sadness also rose in her heart. Qingyi, it's him, she whispered. She naturally knew the feelings Xia Qingyuan had towards Yi Futian. Right now, she could feel that Xia Qingyuan's emotions were the same as hers. Hearing Hua Jiyu's voice, Xia Qingyuan's tears started streaming down uncontrollably. Her hands trembled slightly as she seemed to caress Yi Futian's body. Xia Qingyuan had been hiding her emotions and had never shown her feelings before Yi Futian. She had always loved him wordlessly and hid it in her heart. She could accept all of this too. Once, she had thought that when all of this ended, she would return to Emperor Xia's realm. She would be satisfied to watch Yi Futian reach the top and for all to be well. However, when everything ended, it had not been what she had imagined. Yi Futian had disappeared. Everyone said that he had died. Xia Qingyuan could not accept this result. This past year, she returned to Emperor Xia's realm and performed acts of kindness, saving people, but it was a way to numb herself. She was like a soulless body, only wanting to spread Yi Futian's faith in this way. Not long ago, she wanted to come to visit Yi Futian's homeland, see where he had grown up, and follow in his footsteps. However, after arriving here, she sensed a familiar aura. Thus, she came and saw the tree before her eyes. At this moment, she finally lost control of all the feelings built up in her heart. They burst out violently. She had kept these emotions hidden for years, not only 1 or 2 days. When did he come here? Xia Qingyuan asked Hua Jiyu, tears streaming from her eyes. He was here when I returned, Hua Jiyu answered. She walked to Xia Qingyuan's side and hugged her gently. Xia Qingyuan did not recoil. She leaned into Hua Jiyu's shoulder and cried. Only they could understand this kind of emotion. At this moment, their feelings were the same. Has he appeared before? Xia Qingyuan asked softly. Hua Jiyu shook her head. She worked hard to control her emotions as she smiled and said gently, Qingyuan, we can accompany him here together. Xia Qingyuan looked at the big tree and asked, Can I? Of course. Hua Jiyu nodded. Jiyu, Xia Qingyuan gazed at Hua Jiyu and said, I am willing to become a tree and accompany him here. I can withstand the wind and rain with him until he returns. And if does not return? Hua Jiyu asked, voice trembling. Then I will accompany him forever. Xia Qingyuan's teary eyes were so resolute. Unshed tears also appeared in Hua Jiyu's eyes. She could no longer hold back. Looking at Xia Qingyuan's eyes, tears flowed out, and she nodded, saying, Okay. Thank you. A faint smile appeared on Xia Qingyuan's lips. Then she walked to the tree's side. Her body gradually dissolved, transforming into a tree of life to keep Yi Futian company. The branches of this tree of life kept swaying without stop, going toward the tree on its side. They intertwined, accompanying one another. Rustles came from the tree of life, seeming to cheer or sing. There was no sadness, only company. She was willing to become a tree and stay by his side, accompanying him as they experienced the wind and rain, experiencing the blazing sun and lightning. She felt no regrets at all. She could not stay by his side in life, but now, they could be companions for eternity. Was this not beautiful? Seeing all of this, tears flowed from Hua Jiyu's face endlessly. A moment later, she sat down to play her instrument. The music notes pulsed as she began playing music again. But this time, the music was filled with sadness, throwing one into depression. Ever since Yi Futian became the path, the 7 super forces governed the world's law. Everything seemed to be at peace, but there were still some storms and waves. Especially for the 7 great forces, they knew that the world still faced threats. Nowadays, as the rulers of the world law, they were responsible for safeguarding it and protecting the current world for Yi Futian. The city of the ruins was a free city. It was one of the wealthiest main cities in the universe, filled with strong figures. The 7 super forces established a mutual stronghold here, where they could arrive at any time. It was the former Yi Imperial Palace. There was a huge battle happening in the sky outside the Yi Imperial Palace, above the city of the ruins. 2 super strong figures were facing one another in the sky. There were many top figures behind them too. They were all in the Great Emperor Plane. One of them had an unrestrained aura. It was Gu Donglu. On the other hand, across from him was an elder in a beastly robe. He had very thick hair and a burlesque figure. He was short but was filled with an incomparably aggressive aura, like a wild beast. This was a great emperor of a beast clan. Everything is unstoppable now. You should follow the heavens' orders so that you can be spared. If you continue your stubborn resistance, you will only meet death. The elder's voice was like a grand bell, reverberating through the heavens and shaking the sky. Countless people in the city of the ruins below looked up at the vast sky, feeling shaken inside. This elder was a super strong figure who had come to the original realm. 2 ancient emperors from the Yi Imperial Palace had died in his hands. This was why Gu Donglu, ruler of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, had come personally. Gu Donglu did not speak. 2 beams of frightening divine light shot out of his eyes, transforming into battle swords that stabbed toward the elder. The elder huffed coldly. Instantly, a huge demonic image appeared before his body. A horrifying demonic dragon walked out of it and ripped the sword apart. The elder's gaze swept towards Gu Donglu. Many demonic images appeared in the sky. In a moment, demonic chi shook the heavens. These demonic images contained true dragons, divine phoenixes, Kirin, Xuanwu, Taodai, chaos, and demons. They shrouded the sky and revolved around the land. Violent chi shook the heavens. Even the gods' ruins continent that was extremely far away below could feel that overwhelming might, and the people's hearts shuddered uncontrollably. Who was that elder? He was like the ancestor of the demon beast world. Every demon god image released an aura at the level of a demon monarch. It was exceedingly horrifying. Gu Donglu glanced at him, and with a thought, a huge grinding disk matrix appeared with him as the center. It covered and blocked out the sun. There were immortal monsters and demon gods on this great matrix. Powerful divine might exploded from the matrix, seeming to have supreme divine power from ancient times. The elder furrowed his brows and uttered a sound from his lips. Instantly, great demons burst out of the demon god images. They shook the world and ripped apart the void. However, at the same time, immortal monsters and demon gods also burst out of Gu Donglio's divine prefecture matrix. Please reading on MYB Oxen Oval. The great aggressive demons clashed violently, tearing apart each other's bodies. Some demon gods descended from the sky, killing everything. There were also immortal deities holding sharp swords who stabbed into the sky. Everything was getting destroyed and charging toward the elder. The elder extended his arms. They were filled with limitless strength. He swung his arms and sent out an attack. The fist intent transformed into the power of ancient demon gods, shaking the heavens. It flattened everything and crushed the immortal demons. Gu Donglu extended his hand, and instantly, countless runes appeared before the elder. There were only 9 words in these countless symbols: power, direction, harmony, healing, premonition, knowing, dimension, creation, and enlightenment. These 9 words became the path. Every rune contained immense divine power, as if Gu Donglio's silhouette was there. He lifted a finger, and instantly, the limitless ancient words shot towards the elder. The elder's fist intent shattered the heavens and blasted toward the words, causing them to disintegrate. However, the words kept growing stronger. They were endless and forced the elder to keep retreating. Pow! Blood seeped out of the elder's fist, and his arm trembled. Finally, an ancient word dropped down and ripped apart his fist, passing through his arm. His body wanted to retreat, but countless words fell at the same time, penetrating his body. Every rune contained immense divine power. Countless beams of light penetrated him at the same time. The elder's body was annihilated at once, turning into dust. Gu Donglu scanned the other strong figures and said coldly, "All invaders will be killed without mercy." As soon as he finished speaking, the words started down again. Many of these comers were top figures, but they were all killed on the spot. The battle ended not long after, but Gu Donglio's eyes did not seem relaxed. Instead, he seemed graver. He knew that many strong figures from the outside were hiding in this world. In fact, super great emperors had started appearing among these people. The invading universe was very strong. If they invaded from all fronts one day, what would happen? It seemed that another horrible war would occur again. "Send someone to watch the entrance and report up at any commotion," Gu Donglu ordered. "Yes, Your Majesty," someone said, accepting the order. Gu Donglu led his group away. Heaven Realm, Heaven Court. Two figures stood atop the heavenly palace, gazing into the distance. These two were the String Emperor and Book Deity, who were governing the Heaven Realm now. But even though they were the rulers of the Heaven Realm, they did not feel happy at all. Everyone they were familiar with had died. The princess had left them that year, Donghuang the Great had been killed in battle, and their young master had gone too. It was like they had lost their emotional support. All they could do now was protect the new world that their young master had created. Kaboom! Right then, an extremely horrifying aura suddenly appeared above the Heaven Court. Who is it? Many figures traveled through the air and looked toward the sky above the Heaven Court with serious eyes. That horrifying aura shrouded the entire Heaven Court. The frightening might weighed down. The String Emperor and Book Deity's expressions were shocked too, as they stared to that side. Who was coming to invade them? Boom! A beam of pitch-black divine light penetrated the Heaven Court directly, opening up an ancient path. Then a figure came out of it, hovering above the Heaven Court. This figure was extremely handsome. His eyes scanned the Heaven Court indifferently. Seeing him, many strong figures of the Heaven Court felt their hearts skip a beat. Many cultivators recognized this person. He was back. Yes, they had actually forgotten about him. He had not participated in that apocalyptic world. They did not know that even though he had not attended, he had appeared when the war ended. Me! He scanned the crowd and said, "What, you don't recognize me anymore?" Ji Wudao, the former heir of the Heaven Court and known as the modern Heavenly Emperor, had left after losing to Yi Futian. Now, he had returned to the Heaven Court. Great Skylords Black and White Almighty, the 4 Heavenly Kings, the 9 Star Lords, and many strong figures in the Heaven Court had once viewed Ji Wudao as their master. Now that they saw he had returned, they felt very troubled feelings. The expressions of the String Emperor and Book Deity changed as well. Ji Wudao's aura was now terrifying. He had been the princess's disciple, but he had not been willing to aid the young master. His talent and abilities were also very frightening. The chaotic heavenly swallowing method that he cultivated was especially horrifying. "Ji Wudao, why are you back?" the String Emperor asked. "Naturally, it is to take back what is mine," Ji Wudao answered, glancing at the String Emperor. "What you had were all bestowed upon you by the princess, but you were too ambitious, so the later situation happened. The Heaven Realm was never yours," the String Emperor said, but Ji Wudao cut her off. A horrifying aura appeared in the dome of the sky. Looking at the String Emperor and Book Deity, he said, "Seeing as you were her maids before, I will allow you a respectful death." After he spoke, divine light descended from the sky and landed directly on the bodies of the String Emperor and Book Deity. Their divine powers erupted in an attempt to fight it off, but the gold divine light annihilated the space instantly. Their spirit souls scattered directly, and they died without being able to resist at all. The respectful death, in Ji Wudao's terms, was that he did not swallow them up. The strong figures of the heaven court saw Ji Wudao's aggression, and their expressions dropped. After returning, he had become even more terrifying. He was practically undefeatable. Ji Wudao looked down, and everyone in the heaven court became fearful. Then the great Sky Lord's black and white Almighty bowed, announcing loudly, "I pay my respects to the Heavenly Emperor. I pay my respects to the Heavenly Emperor," the strong figures of the heaven court all said, one after another. Their voices rang through the void. Many people had initially followed Ji Wudao. After all, the situation had changed, and Yi Futian had died. It was logical that the Heavenly Emperor's position would be returned to Ji Wudao. Ji Wudao had returned to the heaven court and killed the string emperor and book deity who had been ruling the heavenly realm. Afterward, he reorganized the forces of the heaven court, aggressively killing the people who were not willing to obey him. They had to choose to either follow him or die. In one night, the heaven court's master changed. Ji Wudao became the new master of the heavenly realm, snatching back the position of the heavenly emperor. The other forces naturally received the news too. When they learned that Ji Wudao had returned and taken the heavenly realm, all the forces were shaken up. Ji Wudao had already been extremely strong back then. He had once attacked the human realm and was known as the monstrous figure of the world, equal to Yi Futian. Now that he had returned, he had killed the string emperor and book deity easily, so he had definitely gotten stronger, but it was hard to guess what level he was at. "Your Majesty, all the top figures of the heavenly realm have arrived," Black Almighty said. With his hands behind his back, Ji Wudao gazed into the distance and said, "Those who died all contributed their strength to this world. They fought for their ideals and did not surrender today either. Their families and friends will not be affected after their deaths." The strong figures behind him were shaken. With extreme fear, they lowered onto one knee and said, "We all followed your Majesty into war before. We always believed that the position of the Heavenly Emperor belonged to your Majesty." Ji Wudao said that those people did not surrender and seemed to vaguely respect them. Meanwhile, they were the traitors who were now obeying Ji Wudao. "I know. I do not intend to blame you all," Ji Wudao said in response. However, Black and White Almighty knew why Ji Wudao was unwilling to approach the people who came to visit. Many of those people were not part of Ji Wudao's old forces. Instead, they had surrendered. Clearly, to Ji Wudao, these people did not have the spirit that cultivators should have. "I did not think that so many things happened after I left this world. The 7 realms encountered such tribulations," Ji Wudao murmured, looking into the distance. After the defeat in battle that year, he used the passageway to the outside world and left this universe, going towards another world. After he returned, he witnessed the ultimate battle. He also saw that the human ancestors still wanted to be reborn and got swallowed by him. "Your ploy was correct, and your choice was correct too. He did well, much better than I had imagined," Ji Wudao said, looking up to the sky. Behind him, Black and White Almighty and the others all felt shocked, but they remained in their kneeling posture and did not rise. The Ji Wudao that they knew was extremely arrogant and talented. He always saw himself as the future heavenly emperor and wanted to inherit the intent of his master. It swept through the entire world with frightening force, spreading with the fastest speed. The catastrophe 1 year ago caused the world's information channels to be more connected. Now, everyone knew about the current situation of the world. But those forces were all helping Yi Futian manage the world law. How could they submit to Ji Wudao? If they did not submit to him, what would happen? Would there be another large battle in the heaven realm 7 days later? Would another worldly catastrophe happen this time? Ji Wudao probably was not like the human ancestor. He only wanted to govern the world law. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. All of the cultivators in the world were paying attention to the heaven realm today. Meanwhile, in the heaven realm, countless powerful cultivators were gathering toward the continent where the heavenly court was located. That day, dazzling divine light flashed in the heaven realm, outside the heavenly court. A group of powerful figures appeared. They were all in the Great Emperor plane. After that, more divine light flashed in different directions. The strong figures of the 6 great forces had all arrived. They had no choice but to come. Since Ji Wudao had returned, they were destined to have this battle. Frightening divine might enveloped the heavenly court. Brilliant divine light descended from the heavenly court. Then a mighty group of strong figures arrived and scanned the 6 great forces. A brilliant figure appeared above the heavenly palace, bathing under the light of the world. He was incredible. It was Ji Wudao. Have you all thought carefully? Ji Wudao stood in the sky and looked down at everything. He spoke to the strong figures of the 6 great forces, not caring at all that there were seniors like the Buddha among them. Of the rulers of the 6 great forces, only Yi Qingyao, ruler of the Dark Court, had not come. Everyone else had arrived. In Qingzhou City, Hua Jiyu did not know anything happening in the world. No one told her either because they could not bear it. No one could bear to disturb her again. Graceful music continued to float above the serene Qingzhou Academy, sounding every day without stop. Hua Jiyu played the music quietly under the tree. She did not ask about the outside world, nor did anyone disturb her. She even put up a colorless realm barrier. This place belonged to her and the 2 trees. The 2 trees behind Hua Jiyu kept swaying extremely joyously as if they understood the music. The 2 trees were now entangled with each other. The tree that Xia Qingyuan had become was the tree of life. She kept pouring the power of life into the other tree. The days passed one by one. The vitality of Yi Futian's tree had become heavier too, and it seemed to have a spirit now. When Hua Jiyu played, she could even hear the tree swaying. They were like pulsing music notes, a reply to her. Of course, this could also be Hua Jiyu's imagination. The battle of the heaven realm shocked the world. After Ji Wudao returned, he showed immense strength. Dong Huangdiyuan of the Divine Prefecture was able to control the divine power of the ancestral dragon and ancestral phoenix. She was not any weaker than the strongest of the former 6 great emperors. However, she had been forced back and injured by Ji Wudao's one attack. Ji Wudao's power crushed Dong Huangdiyuan. Similarly, the Buddha's Buddhist techniques could not restrain Ji Wudao either. Gu Donglu summoned a flood of spiritual demons and monsters, but they had all been defeated. Yi Futian's 4 great disciples could not hold up either. In that battle, Ji Wudao had defeated the strong figures from all the forces under the name of the Heavenly Emperor. He wanted to make them surrender, submit to the heaven realm, and view it as their master. He was not forced back until Devil Emperor Yusheng arrived with the Devil Abyss and fought against Ji Wudao. That battle had shaken the entire heaven realm, splitting the ground and sky. It had been like a duel of pinnacle features. Finally, the 2 called a truce. Neither could get an advantage over the other. Devil Emperor Yusheng led the strong figures from the various forces and retreated. Ji Wudao continued to guard the heaven realm. Both sides had their concerns. Thus, the heaven realm, led by Ji Wudao, and the great forces who protected the heavenly path formed an equilibrium. After the battle, Ji Wudao became the number 1 figure of the current world. Devil Emperor Yusheng was second. Even though the Devil realm had not entered this world and was its own world, the Devil Emperor still cared for this world and came to reinforce them at the critical moment. After all, he was brothers with the heavenly path and went through life and death together. In the heavenly court, Ji Wudao was cultivating with his eyes closed at the heavenly palace's top. He had swallowed a lot of strength while visiting the other universes and then swallowed the human ancestor. He had not fully digested the strength and combined it into his comprehension yet. Otherwise, he would not only be at this level. This also meant that he would become stronger and stronger. This was also why the chaotic heavenly swallowing method was so terrifying. However, Ji Wudao did not expect Yusheng to have control over the Devil Abyss's power and become the Devil Emperor. Even the chaotic heavenly swallowing method had trouble swallowing the billions of devil tribulations and would be penetrated and destroyed. Thus, they ended in a truce. Both stops discontinued the battle. Reading on MYBO Snow Velcom, please. Yusheng's abilities in this battle were probably close to the previous Devil Emperor now. This also pushed Ji Wudao to continue cultivating. It seemed that he had to wait some time to become stronger. Your Majesty, someone came to report to him at this time. Ji Wudao furrowed his brows and opened his eyes to scan the other. The person who came quickly lowered his head and knelt on one knee, saying, "Your Majesty, someone came from the outside world, requesting to see you. I told him to leave, but he said that there's something important related to the possession of this world. I don't dare to delay this." Ji Wudao nodded slightly after hearing his words and said, "Bring them here." "Yes, Your Majesty." The person bowed and retreated. A moment later, some strong figures of the great emperor plane with extraordinary temperaments arrived. They bowed slightly after seeing Ji Wudao. "Greetings, Heavenly Emperor." "What is the matter?" Ji Wudao asked. "We come from the Empyrean. The immortal Emperor of Empyrean will arrive soon and unify this world. The immortal Emperor's divine order is that if the Heavenly Emperor wishes to submit to him and help His Majesty uniting this world, you may become an immortal king of this world," the newcomer said. Ji Wudao listened quickly. When he visited the other universes, he learned of the immortal Emperor of the Empyrean. He ruled over many universes and was known as the immortal Emperor of Empyrean. And now, he wanted to take over this world as well. He also wanted Ji Wudao to govern this world and give him the title of Immortal King. The Heavenly Emperor already wished to unify this world, so the timing is perfect. "We can help you," the other party continued to say. "That is logical." Ji Wudao nodded, and the few who had come quickly smiled, seeming extremely confident. However, Ji Wudao looked at them, and instantly, a horrifying aura shrouded the others directly. Their expressions dropped, and they stared at Ji Wudao. "Heavenly Emperor, what do you mean by this?" Ji Wudao extended a hand. The horrifying swallowing of divine power shrouded them. Instantly, their expressions turned to shock. They could feel their spirit souls being tugged out to be swallowed. They could not resist this force at all. "It is not your place to worry about our world matters." As soon as he spoke, the people let out pained cries. They were swallowed into the horrifying black vortex. They were immediately annihilated and disappeared. After Ji Wudao swallowed those people, he frowned and said, "If you meet cultivators from the outside world again, kill without mercy." His voice spread throughout the heavenly court, shocking the cultivators of the heavenly court. Countless months later, the city of the ruins was now the most prosperous main city in the world. At the moment, many strong figures were gathered in one part of the city. They were strong figures from various emperor-level forces and were all watching this area. This area had been sealed off because cultivators from the outside world entered this world from here. Recently, strong energy waves had come from this area. Strong figures from various forces all came to investigate. Someone suggested tearing the void and exiting, but it was rejected. If there were something outside, it would be too dangerous. It would be no different from suicide. However, the energy waves from this area were getting more and more frightening now. The sealed space here seemed to be getting unstable, as if an extremely frightening force was about to be unleashed. Right then, the sealed space shimmered with scary light. It looked extremely demonic, and all the strong figures of the emperor-level forces were affected. "What is that?" someone asked. "I don't know. It seems that an outside force is going out of control." Some people's expressions were horrified. Just as they were speaking, a beam of blinding light descended. Then the horrible divine light destroyed the sealing power of this place directly. There were muffled booms, and the sky broke apart. A huge figure descended from the sky, passing through the broken space and coming to this world. The strong figures were all forced back. The blinding divine light made it practically impossible to open their eyes, but at this moment, they still withstood the stinging pain to stare at the monstrous figure that had descended. Their hearts pounded incessantly. That monstrous figure was like a city that came from the outside world. It was also like a boundless altar that had many super-transmission matrices. It landed with the piercing divine light. The transmission matrices opened the world up, and many heavenly emperor figures descended from the sky. The gods of another world descended, coming to this world. The strong figures immediately sent what they saw back to their emperor-level forces. At that moment, all of the great forces were shaken. After Ji Wudao had returned and taken back the heaven realm, strong figures from the outside world had invaded them, wanting to conquer this world. The city of ruins was the first to be affected. The incoming strong figures controlled the main city with unstoppable speed, turning this city into their base in this world. It shocked the entire world. Since then, the world seemed to return to that chaotic era. Of course, they all realized that the strongest threat was from the outside world. The world that was invading them was known as the Empyrean, and the god they believed in was the immortal sovereign of Empyrean. The cultivators from Empyrean occupied the city of the ruins, resulting in the formation of the three great powers of this universe. Unlike before, countless cultivators from Empyrean had traveled into this world and formed a legion of the great emperors with an immortal emperor-level cultivator as their commander this time. They were waiting to summon their immortal sovereign into this world and reign over it. Then they would assimilate it as a part of Empyrean. Following that, the Heavenly Mandate Court, Donghuang Imperial Palace, and several other forces had many battles with the cultivators of Empyrean. Meanwhile, the people of the Heavenly Palace of the Heavenly Realm did not make a move. Ji Wudao only focused on his cultivation without laying a hand on the forces of the Heavenly Mandate Court. Sometime later, the battles among these three forces turned into a prolonged conflict that affected many people. Eventually, every cultivator in the world had caught wind of their clashes and the current situation of the world. 5 years had passed in the city of Qingzhou. Martial arts have thrived since the beginning of the new era. The strength of the cultivators of the city of Qingzhou was nothing like before, as they had already learned a lot. At that time, the youths in the Qingzhou Academy were casually chatting with each other. "Ding Chen, what are you planning to cultivate in the future?" a youngster asked. "Sword." Ding Chen was a young man who looked to be around 15. He stared at the sky with a determined look and continued, "I want to be like the three sword gods who could wipe the intruders from another universe out of this world, preventing the foreign cultivators from running amok in the 9 states." A while ago, a few powerful cultivators had tried to infiltrate the 9 states, but they were killed before successfully entering the land. Shortly after, more of them attempted to invade the 9 states when the 3 sword gods had suddenly shown up. That day, Sword Qi had covered the entire 9 states and had annihilated every invader. From then on, countless people had wanted to cultivate the way of the sword all of a sudden. On the same day, a peerless sword Qi could be felt in the sky of the city of Qingzhou. "I've heard some rumors saying that the reason the 3 sword gods had protected the 9 states had something to do with our city," a youngster commented. "I've heard the same thing as well." Gramps said that according to his ancestors, a legendary figure had been in our city a long time ago. Who knows? They said it was something that had taken place 200 years ago. It could be folklore or a mere rhodomantade of the elders of our city. Didn't Mr. Hua always love to tell exaggerated stories? Reading on Maibo Snow.com, please. The young people were talking about something that had happened 200 years ago. Naturally, it felt like a distant past to them. None of them could believe that a legendary person was hailed from their humble city. Existences like gods were totally out of their reach to them. Mr. might love to boast, but he is a fine man. He must be very handsome during his youth. You should check out senior sister Nianyu. It's like she's forever young. There are no changes in her at all after so many years. She's still a stunning beauty. Countless people from the Qingzhou Academy, including the entire city of Qingzhou's residents, were admirers of Huan Yenyu's gorgeous countenance. "Stop daydreaming, brats," a girl snorted. "Ding Chen wants to pursue the way of the sword. What about you lots? I want to head to the heavenly realm to join the Heavenly Imperial Palace. It's my lifelong goal to be accepted into the world's strongest organization as one of its cultivators. When that happens, I'll no longer have any regrets," someone said. The remaining youths at the scene burst into laughter as it was the #1 force in this world. According to legends, Ji Wudao slaughtered the cultivators of Empyrean when they invaded the heavenly realm. Furthermore, he defeated the immortal emperor of Empyrean and killed a few great emperors all by himself. Eventually, the invaders retreated to the city of the ruins. They finally stopped him after summoning the power of their immortal sovereign. After that incident, they no longer dared to infiltrate the heavenly realm. This was the glorious bearing and matchless grandeur of the world's #1 cultivator. "Master," someone shouted. Upon hearing that, all the youths stood up, looked in the same direction, and bowed at Hua Fenglu. The latter merely nodded in response and strode away. "When did Master come here?" "I'm not sure, but I think he had been here for a while. It seemed like he was eavesdropping on our conversation." All the youngsters were panicking because she had mentioned Senior's sister Nianyu earlier. Hua Fenglu raised his head to stare at the sky while strolling at the Qingzhou Academy. His heart was filled with a sudden melancholy feeling. All the people only remembered who was the strongest in the world. But who would know the one who had created it? Even if they knew, which of them would remember? Humans were a bunch of forgetful creatures, after all. There were 2 big lush trees beside the academy grounds. A mellifluous sound of a zither could be heard in the background. Once the music finished playing, Hua Jiyu turned to look at the flickering leaves on the trees and whispered, "It's been 5 years." The changes in the outer realms during the past 5 years were rather big. Ji Wudao had returned and had been occupying the heavenly realm. Apart from Yu Sheng, I didn't think anyone could stop him. Previously, the extraterrestrial cultivators from Empyrean had launched a full-scale invasion of our world. Following that, they had started a war that had involved even the 9 states. Third senior brother had ordered the swordmaster of Lihen, Yaya, and Wuchen to return and protect the 9 states. He didn't want anyone to interrupt us. Although Hua Jiyu seemed to be talking to herself, she believed he could hear her. She had been staying by his side all these years. By doing so, she assumed that he was still around physically. A breeze wafted past the leaves, causing them to rustle and jiggle. The 2 big trees were exuding a powerful aura of vitality. The gentle breeze blew on Hua Jiyu's skin and fluttered her long hair. A gleam flashed across her eyes as she stared at the 2 trees. As the aura of vitality intensified, she could feel the presence of Yi Futian gradually grow stronger. "I know you'll be back, right? I'll be right here waiting for you." Her eyes were brimmed with tears as Hua Jiyu felt that presence. The woman had been waiting for 5 years, and she would continue to stay here and wait. She did not shed tears because she could not wait any longer, but being afraid that her expectations would end up as a disappointment and that the things she had been longing for would never come to pass. As she sat in a lotus position, Hua Jiyu lowered her head to look at the zither producing a euphonious melody. The sequence of soul-stirring notes added a hint of sorrow to the serene background. The trees swayed ceaselessly at the sound of the zither, causing their leaves to fall all over the place while some dropped beside Hua Jiyu. Rays of light emitted from the tree behind Hua Jiyu. In the next instant, a silhouette could be seen slowly taking shape. It did not interrupt her zither performance but listened to the music quietly with a tender look in its eyes. Sensing something out of place, Hua Jiyu turned her head around to catch a glimpse of the scene. At once, her fingers playing the instrument came to a halt and froze there without moving an inch. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she stood up and stretched her shivering hand to reach the silhouette. However, she could not touch the figure that looked incorporeal. "Is this an illusion?" Hua Jiyu mumbled in the reflection of her fear of disappointment. Truthfully, it was impossible for an individual of her cultivation level to fall into an illusion. Still, she was afraid that her yearning for him might have caused her to hallucinate. "No," a disembodied and angelic voice informed Hua Jiyu. With a shaking voice, she asked, "Why can't I touch you? I had left a consciousness here back then. Now, it had transformed into my avatar," Yi Futian explained. Stretching his hand, he tried to stroke Hua Jiyu's long hair while looking delighted. Now that he had shown up here, it would not be long before his eventual return. "Okay." Hua Jiyu nodded. Yi Futian then turned his eyes to look at the other tree beside him, only to find it transformed into a phantom that looked like Xia Qingyuan. She glanced at him with tears rolling down her cheeks without saying a word. Although Hua Jiyu was weeping, a smile played on her face uncontrollably. With a thought, she covered the entire city of Qingzhou with the divine power of colorless realm. As a result, every divine consciousness would be prevented from peering into the city of Qingzhou. A year had passed in the city of Qingzhou. The night view of Qingzhou Lake was beautiful. The cultivators here loved to gather around this place after nightfall. Some of them would raft the boats on the lake, while the others would enjoy the cooling breeze on the lakeside. Each of them had their way of taking in the city's serenity. A ship was seen hovering on the lake while the sound of the zither could be heard coming from it. The beauty who played a piece of melodious music with the zither caught the crowd's attention. Many of them would nod at the person who played the instrument. Some of the young people even looked at the zither player with infatuation, but most would keep their feelings to themselves. Mr. Hua was the chief instructor of Qingzhou Academy, a well-respected individual at the academy. All the citizens knew him well, especially his daughter, Huan Yanyu, who had a stunning countenance and was admired by many. Although she had many admirers, most of them felt ashamed of their plain appearance and knew they would never match her. At the same time, some of the bystanders were staring at a man and woman duo behind Huan Yanyu. The man had long silver hair with a handsome face while the woman was gorgeous. She had an even better temperament than Huan Yanyu. Immediately, the people of the city of Qingzhou knew that she was the sister of Huan Yanyu. Staring at the beauties, everyone wondered how did Mr. Hua beget not one but two of such beautiful daughters. With an attractive appearance that surpassed even Huan Yanyu's, it was unavoidable that she would be the center of attention. Naturally, Futian received a lot of hateful glares. Their eyes were green with envy at the sight of him having two beauties by his side while Huan Yanyu performed songs with the zither. Many of them thought that if they were the ones being treated like that, they could finally die as a happy man. According to hearsay, this person was the disciple of Mr. Hua, and he loved to brag as well. What super VIP treatment he had there, someone mumbled while rafting their boat past. Being born handsome is surely a privilege. Some of them looked at Futian and then stared back at themselves. The difference between outward appearance made them feel downbeat. After all, his white hair and temperament had only further enhanced his graceful bearing. Futian paid no heed to the stares of the onlookers. Although the people in the city were looking at him with envy and jealousy, most of them were simple-minded. His perspective had long since changed following the achievement of his current cultivation level. Leaning against the boat, Futian enjoyed the scenery of Qingzhou Lake during the night. It was reminiscent of those days from him. He would come here every day to sit on a boat, living the life of an ordinary person while enjoying the sight of people going about in their lives. It was as if he could see himself as one of them. Reading on Maibo Snow Vel Calm, please. We should enjoy this scenery with a good drink, some songs, and recite a poem, Futian uttered with a smile. Be my guest, Hua Jiyu replied as she curled the corners of her lips. It's a shame that I'm unlearned and have limited literacy, Futian sighed. Hua Jiyu rolled her eyes to the back of their sockets while Xia Qingyuan let out a chuckle. If I were to choose between having beauties in such a breathtaking landscape and the whole world, I would pick the former, Futian teased after seeing the smiles of the two of them, only to be glared at by them. However, this was when Hua Jiyu was the happiest, as there was no conflict. Plus, Futian did not have to focus on his mission. So, he got to spend all his time with them. She did not mind sharing this serenity with Xia Qingyuan at all. A life like this was already considered a dream come true. It was the same for Xia Qingyuan as well. What more could she ask for? Time had never been so kind to her before. Still, she knew this happy moment was only temporary. There was no telling what would happen in the future. Although Hua Jiyu had covered the entire city of Qingzhou with her divine power of colorless realm, it was impossible that Futian did not realize the things that happened outside. After all, he was the one who created this heavenly path. But since Futian did not mention it, they did not ask anything unnecessary. They would just stay by his side and enjoy this peaceful time. Needless to say, Futian had known about all the things that had been going on outside. Truthfully, his current condition was somewhat similar to the human ancestor during the era of the 6 great emperors. He was just an avatar formed by a piece of his consciousness. He would first materialize a physical existence, then reform it into a human shape. Xia Qingyuan should be credited for this accomplishment as well. If she had not transformed herself into the Tree of Life, he would need a longer time to spawn his consciousness. He was waiting for the time of his comeback. The boat was hovering on the lake as Huan Yinyu played the zither with a gentle smile. It was a magnificent sight to behold. "Miss Nianyu." A voice was heard from a luxurious-looking ship in the opposite. The word, Chao, could be seen engraved in many places on the ship. The ship of the Chao clan caught the attention of many onlookers. The Chao clan was the nouveau riche in the city of Qingzhou. It had increased its fame rapidly and given rise to several prominent figures in recent years. With the powerful tricks and unique leadership of its patriarch, the Chao clan soon found themselves among the elites of the city of Qingzhou. Many of the administrative staff in Qingzhou Academy were hailed from the Chao clan, for they knew that they had to extend their reigns into Qingzhou Academy to grow stronger. Their family clan could only be prosperous and create a legacy this way. Mr. Hua from Qingzhou Academy was a man of mystery. The Chao clan could not dig up his background, nor could they gauge his true strength. He had also rejected several of their advances to curry favor with him. Mr. Hua had been leading a recluse life and cared not about fame or power. So, the Chao clan showed him respect to a certain extent. The young man who spoke earlier was a member of the Chao clan, Chao Yuan. He was one of the most outstanding individuals among the younger generation. He knew that his clan had been trying to win over Mr. Hua. His daughter, Huan Yinyu, was a woman with stunning features. He attempted to get closer to her but did not get a chance. One Huan Yinyu could recognize Chao Yuan. So, she nodded at him in response and continued to disregard him. "I've heard a lot about Miss Hua Jieyu. It's my pleasure to finally see you in person today. I've always admired Mr. Hua. I hope you too could be so kind as to accept my invitation to my ship to talk about the stories of Mr. Hua." Chao Yuan looked at Hua Jiyu and said while ignoring Yi Futian. Hua Jiyu furrowed her brows in annoyance as a hint of icy glare flashed across her eyes. However, Chao Yuan did not notice any of that. Grasping her hand, Yi Futian turned to look at Chao Yuan and replied, "I'm sorry, but they're busy today." After hearing Yi Futian's words, Chao Yuan turned to stare at him. According to his intel, the former was the disciple of Mr. Hua, though little was known about him. After a while, he reverted his gaze to Hua Jiyu and Huan Yinyu as if he had not heard Yi Futian's words earlier. Huan Yinyu continued to ignore him as the boat slowly moved forward. Soon, their boat went past the other party's ship and headed to a different location. As Chao Yuan set his eyes on the boat, slowly getting further away from his sight, a glint of gloominess flashed across his eyes. There was nothing the Chao clan could not do in Qingzhou. On the boat, Hua Jiyu glanced at Yi Futian as if she had something to say. Then he commented, "Why are you allowing small fries to affect your mood?" After saying that, Yi Futian shot a glance at Qingzhou lakeside as someone was lighting up fireworks that set off in the sky beautifully. He asked, "Do you still remember when we were 16? "Of course." Hua Jiyu drank in the sight of the spectacular fireworks and quickly pushed the unhappy incident earlier into the back of her mind. Her eyes looked more beautiful than the fireworks as she gazed at them. The cultivators of Empyrean continued to arrive in the city of the ruins. The mind of the immortal sovereign of Empyrean was summoned into this world and covered the entire city of the ruins. They occupied that location and could soon take over the whole world. Wars erupted in many places throughout the whole world. It was at a scale that involved many forces, including those that ruled over the heavenly law. A terrifying war broke out in a location of the heavenly mandate court. Dou Zhao, Xiao Muyu, Long Chen, and the others were at different locations on the battlefield filled up by the enemies who encircled them. Unleashing the will of the fighting god to the limits, Dou Zhao's body gleamed like a war god. Even so, he was still exhausted from all the battle, panting like a dog while blood was dripping from the corners of his lips. Xiao Muyu was not any better than him either. Her black apparel had outlined her perfect figure. The bloodstains only added to the overall bittersweet feel. "Will we die here?" Xiao Muyu murmured. They did not pass away during the battle of the heavenly path back then. Yet, they had never expected the fight to fend off the invasion of Empyrean would be so disastrous. At that time, the sky on top of their battlefield was enveloped by a petrifying dark storm that looked like the apocalypse. The total forces of Empyrean were too great. All these years of fighting had taught them one thing. Empyrean did not consist of just one universe but a superpower of multiple universes. The most significant individual of a universe would be called the Immortal King, who ruled over the law of that world under the command of their immortal sovereign. Ever since the opening of the space passage, the cultivators from different universes had been infiltrating this world increasingly and ceaselessly. They started wars and plundered goods. The same thing had happened over and over again. If it were to intensify further, they would eventually occupy the whole world. I haven't even become a great emperor yet. There's no way I'll let myself die here. Let's continue the battle. Dou Zhao bellowed as he emanated the will of the fighting god to the max, nearly breaking his body. At once, a powerful will exploded like the unleashing of the will of a true god. Nevertheless, his spiritual energy had reached its limit. After letting out a roar, he flew into the sky and continued fighting. Watching the happening in the sky, a hint of sadness flashed across Xiao Muyu's eyes. As her gaze remained in the same place, she muttered, "Master, when will you return?" Up until that moment, she believed that her master would come back to them one day. However, she was not the only one with such sentiment. Everyone in the Heavenly Mandate Court felt the same as well. They were all waiting and believing that he would make his comeback one day. Suddenly, a group of cultivators moved around and wreaked havoc, causing the sky to tremble. Xiao Muyu turned to stare in the direction of the commotion. Her eyes immediately widened as she noticed the arrival of the reinforcements from the Devil World. Yu Sheng and the Legion of the Devil World under his command were the greatest force to fight against the invasion of Empyrean at that time. Reading on Maibo XNOVL. Come please. The Devil Emperor, Yu Sheng, was regarded as the number 2 after Ji Wudao by the people of the world. The war continued to burst out in different places in the world. Fortunately, the secluded locations of the 9 states were not affected by the war. The 9 states was the homeland of Yi Futian, so many people had returned to this land. In fact, those people were relatively close to Yi Futian himself. Hence, the 3 sword emperors had been defending the 9 states. The 9 states was the forbidden land of the gods and devils. Although wars had been ongoing outside, the city of Qingzhou remained peaceful. In Qingzhou Academy, a group of people could be seen gathering and chortling as they chattered. "Brother Yi, how do you know Miss Jiu?" someone asked out of curiosity. Yi Futian had become well known in Qingzhou Academy for being the son-in-law of Mr. Hua, Miss Jiu's husband, and for having a soulmate. It was something that people could only have in their dreams. The youths of Qingzhou Academy were curious about Yi Futian, but they only knew that his surname was Yi and that he was the son-in-law of Mr. Hua. Hence, they had been addressing him as Brother Yi. Unbeknownst to them, he was even older than their grandpa's grandfather. It was something that happened a long time ago. At that time, Miss Jiu and I attended Qingzhou Academy together. Then I came across my father-in-law by chance and was accepted as one of his disciples. Following that, Yi Futian explained in a half-joking tone. At once, the young people were looking at him with all sorts of expressions. "A long time ago? Just how old you are, Brother Yi. How are you trying to fool?" A person remarked. So Brother Yi had joined the academy as Mr. Hua's disciple after seeing Miss Jiu? What a pro move. One of the youths was full of admiration. Previously, Mr. Hua had bragged about one of his disciples being a powerful cultivator who could turn one of their eyes into the sun and the other one into the moon. They could even shoot thunder out of their mouth. "Don't tell that was you, Brother Yi?" One of the youngsters stared at Yi Futian in doubt because the handsome man before their eyes did not seem to be that capable. If he were such a powerful cultivator, wouldn't he be a towering and almighty giant? Otherwise, how could his eyes turn into the sun and the moon? "I didn't expect Mr. Hua to tell you about my past," Yi Futian said with a smile. The entire atmosphere went dead silent for a while after he spoke. All the youths were staring at him blankly. As expected of the son-in-law of Mr. Hua, Brother Yi does behave like Mr. Hua. You're right. To think that they could talk big as naturally as breathing. Not even the gods are that capable. Do you think the greatest man in the world, Ji Wudao, has such a demeanor? One of the youngsters lifted his head into the sky, looking fascinated. He should have. Just look at how cool the three-sword emperors were when they sealed up the 9 states. Ji Wudao, being the strongest individual, must be even more powerful than them. I wish I could meet the three-sword emperors in person one day. I could die without regrets if I could just stumble upon one of the great emperors. You'll meet one eventually, Yi Futian noted with a light smile. Perhaps? Who knows how many years I have to cultivate to see it happen? Maybe it might never happen throughout my entire life? Stop daydreaming. That's the great emperor we're talking about here. Let's go. Class is about to start, someone responded. With that, the youths prepared to leave and said, Brother Yi, we'll take our leave first. Let's catch up for more big talks later. Yi Futian nodded and saw them off. A smile played on his face as he recounted his past. Thinking back, he had once been a youth like them long ago. After getting up, he took a stroll in Qingzhou Academy. Then an elderly janitor sweeping the floor greeted him with a smile. Little rascal Yi. Good for him to be born with such great looks. Those young instructors who were jealous of Yi Futian were bad-mouthing him from a distance without minding if he could hear them or not. Yi Futian had beautiful women surrounding him constantly. So, it would be natural for people to be envious of him. So why weren't any of you born with good looks? The elderly janitor sweeping the floor riposted with a smirk. Yi Futian bowed his head at the elderly person and went on his way. There were disputes here in this small town, even though it was a quiet place. After all, there would be strife as long as the society was made up of people. Chao Yuan of the Chao clan would be a good example. At that point, he was still obsessed with Huan Yinyu and even begged his family to propose marriage. As one would expect, the Chao clan had made a move, planning to win over Hua Fenglu for good. Sensing everything happening, Yi Futian shook his head and flashed a resigned smile. He could not picture the sight of a member of the Chao clan together with Huan Yinyu. Lifting his head to gaze at the sky, he thought, the Chao clan surely didn't know just how big the world was. There was a lake in the backyard next to the Qingzhou Academy, where Yi Futian lived. There was an old tree next to the lake. Yi Futian was sitting under the tree fishing at the moment. When a fish was hooked, Yi Futian would pull the rod, while Xia Qingyuan would take the fishing line and put the caught fish into the bucket. She was tremendously happy with living such a normal life. Grinning from ear to ear, she said, "This one is bigger than the previous one." "It looks like we will be having a feast later," Yi Futian responded with a smile. Time slowly passed as Yi Futian continued fishing. Soon, he closed his eyes as if he had fallen asleep. Xia Qingyuan was sitting and waiting quietly. On the continent far away from the 9 states, there was a hut in a quiet valley surrounded by a snow-capped and uninhabited mountain range. At that time, a sage-like old man was sitting outside the hut and fishing. It was as if everything in the world was silent here. No one would make a sound. All of a sudden, the old man frowned a little after sensing something. Following that, another silhouette could be seen fishing in another dimension. After catching sight of the silhouette, the old man flashed a smile. "Master!" The silhouette bowed and smiled at him. By now, one would have noticed that he was the master of Four Corner Village. Staring at the other party, he asked, "How long has it been since you returned?" "It's been a while," Yi Futian answered. "My apologies for interrupting you." "No worries." The master smiled as he peered at Yi Futian. At that time, Yi Futian looked like an average person. Although his features were stunning as ever, there was no aura exuded from him at all. There was basically no difference between him and a peasant. Reading on Maibo XNOVL. Come please. Yi Futian had reverted to his original nature. It was as if he was only a speck of dust in this world, one of the living beings that were unremarkable. "It looks like you've reached yet another level now," the master commented as he glanced at Yi Futian. "My purpose of visiting this time is to ask you about something," Yi Futian uttered. "Go ahead," the master replied with a nod. "Master, you said that you were once trapped by time. How did you get away from its grasp in the end?" Yi Futian questioned. Ever since his return, he seemed to be doing nothing every day. Yet, he had constantly been meditating. However, the kind of meditation he was doing at that moment was not the same as before. After all, he had become the heavenly path. So, the meditation in the past had no benefit to him at all. Instead, the battle with the human ancestor back then had taught him many things. Everything in the world would eventually return to its original form. Now that you could disregard the dimensional boundaries and show up here, you've reached a greater height. You're in control of the heavenly path, yet you could recreate an avatar of yourself. Back then, I could escape from the grasp of the space-time trap only because I had gained enlightenment on the fact that the past was me, the present is me, the future will be me. All the different versions of me are the real me, the master explained. After hearing the master's words, Yi Futian was stunned. The past was me, the present is me, the future will be me. In Buddhism, there was a saying that went, it's impossible to retain a past thought, to seize a future thought, and even to hold on to a present thought. The two might be contradicting, yet they could relate to one another. Thank you, Master, Yi Futian said and bowed. Go, the master replied and disappeared into thin air as if nothing had happened earlier. At that time, Yi Futian continued to fish at the lakeside with his eyes closed. He did not budge an inch since the beginning. Yi Futian had been keeping the master's words on replay in his mind. At the same time, another voice could be heard saying, I am the heavenly path, I am who I am. All was vanity, yet everything did truly exist. The war in the world intensified as time passed slowly. The scale of the battle continued to increase. The world that had tasted peace for a while would plunge into an imminent war. A blood-curdling presence turned up in the city of the ruins that day. The gigantic altar summoned an indestructible force that covered the entire atmosphere. All the cultivators of Empyrean were blown away when the force showed up in the world, for they knew that their immortal sovereign was about to appear. The war in this world would end when the immortal sovereign made its appearance. The cultivators of Empyrean were stationed in the city of the ruins. The aura they exuded was extremely formidable. At the peak of the altar, a group of heavenly immortals could be seen hovering there, staring at the sky. The leading figure was an immortal emperor. His sight seemed to pierce through the void as he lifted his head to look at the sky. Soon, many divine consciousnesses manifested here. It looks like you are all here, the immortal emperor stared into the distance and remarked. Before long, multiple silhouettes presented themselves in the sky all of a sudden. At the greatest height, Ji Wudao's profile could be seen. Simultaneously, Gu Donglu and the Buddha appeared in other places, staring in the same direction as they felt a threatening presence. The immortal sovereign will arrive 7 days later. When it happens, you should decide whether to obey or die, the immortal emperor piped. That altar was connected to another universe, summoning an otherworldly force ceaselessly. With that, the faces in the sky vanished from sight altogether. Ji Wudao was sitting in a lotus position above the heavenly palace of the heavenly realm. Opening his eyes, he shot a quick look at the lower plane. His sight pierced through the atmosphere and saw the altar. Following that, he raised his head, looked into the heavens, and said, I will surpass him. You will see it. At the Chao clan in the city of Qingzhou, the leader of the Chao clan, Chao Zheng, was sitting in the first seat in the council hall. The remaining people were important figures of the Chao clan, including Chao Yuan. They were gathered here to talk about Chao Yuan's marriage. Previously, he had mentioned his intention to be betrothed to Mr. Hua's daughter, Huan Yinyu, which moved the hearts of the people. Hence, they were here to discuss the details of this plan. I think this plan works, someone noted. We've got several people in Qingzhou Academy now. I've heard that the Chancellor valued Hua Fenglu very much. If we could make this marriage happen, we would finally take control of the entire Qingzhou Academy. Besides, we will have Hua Fenglu as our support. Hua Fenglu has raised many outstanding students in recent years. In the future, they will become pillars and backbones of the city of Qingzhou. Yeah, I seconded that. Chao Yuan is pretty excellent himself. I reckoned Huan Yinyu's cultivation level should be relatively high. The two of them will be a perfect match, another person commented. This matter would benefit the Chao clan a lot. I will not agree to this before finding out Hua Fengliu's background, An elderly individual said. This is just a proposal. If he were to reject, we could use this opportunity to dig up Hua Fengliu's background, someone answered. After listening to the people's opinions, Chao Jing made a decision and declared, in that case, we shall propose marriage 7 days from now. Snow fell over Qingzhou early in the morning, turning the entire landscape into a silver world. When Yi Futian arrived at the yard, his sight was filled with white snow, and Huan Yanyu was building a snowman in the middle. She even asked Hua Jiyu to help out while Xia Qingyuan stood on the sidelines and smiled. At the sight of the happening, Yi Futian did not feel the cold of winter but a warmth that came from the deepest part of his heart. Only those who had gone through the prosperity and vicissitudes of lives and returned to live a common life could understand the beauty in the ordinary. Brother-in-law, who do you think this looks like? Huan Yanyu asked with a grin. She had built 3 snowmen in total. The one in the middle was a man, and the other 2 beside were women. Obviously, they were Yi Futian, Hua Jiyu, and Xia Qingyuan. What are they? Yi Futian teased with a smirk on his face. Huan Yanyu pouted like a pufferfish as the temperament of her brother-in-law and sister could never be adequately represented by mere snowmen. Let's go for a walk to watch the snow in the city. Yi Futian strolled forward with a gentle smile, leaving his footprints on the snowy ground. Hua Jiyu and Xia Qingyuan went after Yi Futian without hesitation. After leaving the courtyard, they came to Qingzhou Academy. Many youngsters could be seen there. When the youths saw the group coming, they gave way for the latter and greeted, Brother Yi. Yi Futian nodded happily. A sudden chilly breeze blew on his long hair. Hua Jiyu immediately went behind him and put a white coat over him. After shrugging his shoulders, the coat was firmly wrapped around him. Meanwhile, Xia Qingyuan went before him to fix his collar. Wow, the young boys exclaimed from the sidelines. They were staring at Yi Futian with a joyful and innocent look. They were rather envious of him. Yi Futian was relatively popular in Qingzhou Academy since he was handsome, humorous, and loved talking big. After they had gone further away, someone noted, Look, what's wrong with being common people? Isn't Brother Yi a normal person? But look at him having beautiful girls surrounding him. What a lucky guy. Just look at yourself in the mirror, will you? One of the girls said with disgust. At once, the expression of the person who said that earlier immediately turned gloomy. It was only natural since Yi Futian's had a stunning look. Visit oiboxnov.com to read, please. Judging from Brother Ye's temperament, he does not come across as someone normal. He may not have the ability to turn his eyes into the sun and the moon or hold the stars in his hand, but as Mr. Hua's disciple he will not stay as an ordinary person, the girl continued. After that, her voice became softer and she mumbled, Who knows, but the thing about him turning his eyes into the sun and the moon might very well turn out to be true. Don't tell me you've fallen for Brother Yi? Nevertheless, the sound of the youngsters having fun subsided. Many of them went blank for a while before turning in the same direction. Following that, the entire atmosphere went dead silent for a moment as everyone's attention was on the end of the snowy ground. A silhouette in black came into sight all of a sudden. The figure was burly and gallant with a remarkable temperament. Anyone could tell that this person was extraordinary at first sight as he gave off a domineering vibe. All the people would lower their heads as their gaze met his. They were all nervous at the sight of him. Who is this? The crowds muttered. The burly person shot a quick glance at Qingzhou Academy and stood on the snowy ground silently as if they were waiting for something. The snowfall caused his black robe and hair to turn white slowly. But he stood rooted to the spot against the snowstorm and gale like a statue without moving an inch. Who is he waiting for? The teenagers became increasingly curious. After a while, there was a person heading toward Qingzhou Academy from outside in the snow. He was a handsome man dressed in white, and he was none other than Yi Futian. The moment Yi Futian caught sight of the silhouette, he immediately became high-spirited and headed toward the latter. The hearts of the youths of Qingzhou Academy skipped a beat at the sight of it. Did that person come looking for Brother Yi? Was Brother Yi not an average person after all? You're finally here, Yi Futian said as he stopped before Yu Sheng. Yeah. Yu Sheng nodded and remained taciturn. Accompany me for a walk, Yi Futian requested. Then he turned around and began walking. Yusheng followed behind and wandered around Qingzhou Academy with him. Hua Fenglu watched the scene before his eyes on the academy grounds, reminiscing. It was as if the time had gone back. Many years ago, the two youths would take a walk in Qingzhou Academy just like that. They both headed toward the old tree and came to a halt. This place was once their lodging when they were still studying at Qingzhou Academy. At that time, there was a tree where they would lean against and rest. Yi Futian halted his steps before the tree and sat on the snowy ground, leaning against the old tree. Yusheng followed suit and leaned against the tree, sitting next to him. Snowflakes fell from the sky consistently. There was no sound in the atmosphere as neither of them spoke. They sat there quietly, allowing the snow to gather on their bodies. Who would have thought that the two people who were quietly sitting there were the avatar of the heavenly path and the devil emperor who ruled over the devil realm? Beneath the ancient tree, among the snowflakes, Yi Futian and Yusheng were covered by white snow. Yi Futian's eyes were closed. In his mind, he recalled memories of his past. In his youth, he had grown up here with Yusheng. Now they had returned to this place. All the past events flashed in his mind, turning into images that were etched in his memory. At this moment, he felt as though he had returned to the past. In the past, he did not have many worries. Life was simple and he was happy. Snowflakes landed on Yi Futian's face. He revealed a faint smile. The past and the present seemed to be overlapping. Yi Futian returned to the past. Both his face and his temperament were changing. However, he soon returned to his current state. His body shifted between being an illusory figure and a real body of flesh. All these changes were subtle and were unnoticed by others. Yi Futian's smile turned into a brilliant grin. He finally comprehended everything. The past and the present. He was both the heavenly path and himself. He was simultaneously in the past and the present. In the Qingzhou Academy, Hua Fenglu was also standing in the snow. He raised his head to admire the falling snowflakes. Right then, a figure trekked through the snow, approaching him from a distance. The figure had a humped back and appeared frail. When Hua Fenglu shifted his gaze away from the scenery, he noticed the old man. He was stupefied, seemingly in disbelief at what he was seeing. What was happening? Hua Fenglu thought. Why would he suddenly be hallucinating? Visit Maibo X novel. Come to read, please. The old man paused in his tracks and looked at Hua Fenglu with a smile. Everything seemed too real. Hua Fenglu pinched himself. The old man was still standing there. With a trembling voice, Hua Fenglu called out, "Master?" The old man responded while nodding his head. "Grandmaster." Hua Jiyu walked toward them. She similarly could not believe her eyes as she stared at the old man. The old man smiled gently as he looked at Hua Fenglu and Hua Jiyu. Huan Yinyu was somewhat confused. She did not recognize the old man. Since when did her father have a master? Hua Fenglu was still incredulous about the appearance of the old man. He turned around and looked in the direction where Yi Futian was. Yi Futian was still sitting quietly underneath the ancient tree. Hua Fenglu and Hua Jiyu also looked there. Suddenly, they understood what was going on. They were astonished. Nevertheless, they grinned from ear to ear. There were even tears flowing down their cheeks. Of course, they realized what this meant. Everything would soon pass. At the same time, a terrifying power enveloped the entire city of the ruins. A gigantic face appeared in the endless sky. Ji Wudao's gaze pierced through space as he observed the situation in the city from the heaven realm. Cultivators from everywhere, including the heavenly mandate court, the dark world and the world of Buddhism, had gathered in the city. As the ruler of the divine prefecture, Donghuang Diwen was present too. She was the commander of the troops of the divine prefecture. Today's battle might be their last. However, they took a blood oath and vowed to protect the world that Yi Futian had created. A solemn vibe loomed over the city. The troops of the city of the ruins had departed. War was about to erupt. A voice called out. Donghuang Diwen was stunned. When she turned around and saw the figure who had appeared, her heart trembled violently. All the Donghuang Imperial Palace cultivators were astonished to see the figure. "Father!" Donghuang Diuan's voice was shaky. How was this possible? She could not believe what she saw. "I have come back to join the war," Donghuang the Great said with a smile. Underneath the ancient tree in the Qingzhou Academy, Yuxing opened his eyes to look at the sky. The war had begun. Yuxing glanced at Yi Futian, who was beside him. He saw that the latter's aura was still undergoing subtle changes. It was as though it was changing all the time. Yuxing did not disturb him. He knew Yi Futian was about to have an epiphany. Just then, there was a massive commotion in the academy. Someone was riding over here. In the sky above the academy, monstrous beasts traversed the skies. Their lineup was extremely large. Many cultivators appeared in the academy, and they were all headed in this direction. "Chao Zheng from the Chao clan has come to pay a visit," a voice cried out from outside the academy. The cultivators in the academy all came out. Outside the academy, the members of the city of Qingzhou also gathered. They sensed that something was different today and something might happen. The members of the Chao clan had probably come here for Chao Yuan's sake. It was no secret in Qingzhou that Chao Yuan fancied Huan Yinyu. The cultivators of the Chao clan stepped into the academy. They walked towards Hua Fenglu. A few elders of the Qingzhou Academy also accompanied them, smiling as they walked toward Hua Fenglu. This scene caused Hua Fenglu to frown. The Chao clan dared to show their faces here. The headmaster of the Qingzhou Academy stood not far away behind Hua Fenglu as he observed everything. He did not stop the Chao clan. It was because he knew that he was not needed. After the Chao clan rose to become the top clan in Qingzhou, they had gotten rather arrogant. However, they were acting presumptuously because they had not seen much of the world. Today, perhaps they would have a taste of real power. "Master," Chao Zheng and Chao Yuan greeted Hua Fenglu as they bowed slightly. Then Chao Zheng said, "My son Chao Yuan has long admired your second daughter. Today, we have purposely come here to propose to her. It will be an honor to the Chao clan if my son can become your son-in-law." "Please leave," Hua Fenglu calmly replied. It was as though he had cast a cold bucket of water on them. The smile on Chao Zheng's face instantly froze. Hua Fenglu didn't even bother to humor him. He immediately replied with these words. He did not even look directly at Chao Yuan. "Master, my son has extraordinary talent. In the city of Qingzhou, he is considered one of the top figures," Chao Zheng continued. "Master, Chao Yuan is a leader of the young generation. He is indeed suitable for your second daughter," the elders of the Qingzhou Academy spoke up to the side. "Get lost." Just then, a voice with a tone as cold as ice could be heard. In the distance, Yuxing glanced over at them. Chao Zheng and the others turned to look at him as they frowned. However, Yuxing's gaze was extremely frightening and seemed to contain unparalleled authority. He was domineering to the point that no one dared to look him in the eye. This caused Chao Zheng to feel humiliated. He lowered his head to avoid Yuxing's gaze. "Who do you think you are? Since when are you qualified to intervene in the affairs of the Chao clan?" Just then, Chao Yuan chided coldly. Newborn calves were not afraid of tigers. His heart was full of rage. He had come to propose, but he was being humiliated. The surrounding temperature plummeted as Yuxing swept a glance at Chao Yuan. Yi Futian, who was leaning against the tree, opened his eyes. "Yuxing," Yi Futian called out. Yuxing then retracted his aura and looked at Yi Futian. Yi Futian walked towards the crowd. He first stopped in front of Elder Qin and bowed, saying, "Greetings, Grandmaster." Elder Qin moved towards Yi Futian and pulled him up with his hands, saying, "Futian, this is not permissible." "Grandmaster, it's my honor," Yi Futian replied with a smile. Only then did Elder Qin nod in agreement. He felt a great sense of pride. The members of the Chao clan frowned since they were being ignored. Chao Yuan was especially irritated. He was here for the marriage proposal, yet the spotlight seemed to be on Yi Futian. Yi Futian looked at Chao Yuan and commanded, "Leave." "Who are you to command me?" Chao Yuan retorted coldly. The atmosphere turned awkward. All the disciples of the Qingzhou Academy were watching them too. Some of them were worried about Yi Futian. Would Brother Yi be in danger? The Chao clan was the most powerful clan in the city of Qingzhou. "Who am I?" replied Yi Futian with a smile. He looked up at the sky and said, "I am back." The moment he finished saying this, on the battlefield of the City of Ruins, which was extremely far away, a voice reverberated in the space. "I am back! I am back!" The voice reverberated in the space. Everyone heard it. Immediately, the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Court, the Divine Prefecture, and other lands revealed looks of immense joy. They had expressions of astonishment on their faces. A terrifying aura appeared in the space. A divine tribulation that could destroy the world descended. Countless beams of light of catastrophe descended at the same time. On the battlefield, the invaders who took part in the battle were immediately killed off by the divine tribulation. In an instant, countless people perished. As for the Qingzhou Academy, the crowd was skeptical about who Yi Futian was speaking to. However, the next moment, the sky split apart. Rumble! A divine light penetrated through the rift of space and descended, lighting up the entire sky above the city of Qingzhou. Rumble! 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 Countless beams of divine light followed after the initial light. The heavens above the city were illuminated. Dazzling halos shone far and wide. The lights came from outer space and they surrounded the whole city. A majestic god's might could be sensed by everyone present. Instantly, everyone in the city emerged from the buildings. Their hearts were beating fast. "It's a divine miracle," exclaimed the crowd as they knelt on the ground and worshipped the lights. They sensed God's might. Were Tianshins descending upon their city? One by one, Tianshins materialized after beams of divine light charged into the city. Each and every one of them were gods that dominated a part of the world. The crowd in the city worshipped them. What were they seeing? Tianshins filled the sky. The cultivators of the Chao clan felt their hearts racing. They, along with the disciples of the academy, were astonished by the arrival of the Tianshins. What surprised them even more was that they could sense that the Tianshins had their gazes fixed on the Qingzhou Academy. Heavenly Emperor greeted all the Tianshins as they bowed their heads in the direction of the academy. At this very moment, the crowd in the city of Qingzhou were worshipping the Tianshins. However, the latter's arrival was not without purpose. They too had come to worship. Heavenly Emperor greeted the Tianshins. The Tianshins had come to pay their respect to the Heavenly Emperor, the crowd thought. For a moment, silence enveloped the entire Qingzhou Academy. The youths stared at the Tianshins in the sky in awe. These people were all legendary figures. Now, they had come to pay their respect to the Heavenly Emperor. Who was the Heavenly Emperor? The Tianshins were all looking in the direction of the Qingzhou Academy, specifically towards Yi Futian. Could it be Brother Yi? The youths felt their hearts beating fast. Could it be that Brother Yi, who enjoyed boasting, was the Heavenly Emperor? Even the cultivators of the Chao clan wore puzzled looks. They stared blankly at what was happening. Just now, Yi Futian shouted, "I am back," at the sky. Then, dazzling divine lights poured down from the heavens above, and the Tianshins came to visit him. Divine lights continued to descend upon the city. More and more Tianshins arrived. Among them were some cultivators from the Devil world. When they saw Yu Sheng, they bowed and greeted, "Greetings, Devil Emperor." "Greetings, Devil Emperor." Many other great emperors followed suit and greeted Yu Sheng. He was the guardian of this world. During Yi Futian's absence the past few years, Yu Sheng was the one who protected the world from the invasion of the Heaven Realm and the Empyrean. "Devil Emperor," exclaimed Chao Yuan. His face turned pale. Just now, he asked Yu Sheng who he was in a disdainful tone. Yu Sheng did not respond to the greetings. He stood behind Yi Futian quietly. Many years ago, the two brothers had always been like this in the Qingzhou Academy. "Master!" Fang Xuan, Tai Tu, and the other two disciples of Yi Futian rushed down from the sky and landed in the academy. They were exhilarated about Yi Futian's return. "You are reading on Imibio XN0 Vil. Com great emperors and Tianshins referred to Yi Futian as master." Yi Futian smiled while nodding his head. He scanned across the lineup of Tianshins and asked, "Is everyone doing fine?" We have been awaiting your return, Lord Chen said. The great emperors from the Ziwei imperial palace bowed to Yi Futian. Lord Chen added, "Finally, the day has come." "Thank you for your hard work," Yi Futian responded. He then looked at the Buddha and greeted, "The Buddha. On behalf of all the Buddhas from the world of Buddhism, I welcome the return of the Heavenly Emperor," the Buddha said while bowing. Even though he was a senior of Yi Futian, the latter was worthy of his respect because he had transformed into the heavenly path during the battle. Yi Futian had sacrificed himself to save the world. Therefore, everyone should bow to him regardless of their status. The Buddha was no exception. "Greetings, Heavenly Emperor." Various Buddhas paid their respects to Yi Futian. Their greetings were sincere. Gu Donglu and the members of the Heavenly Mandate Court welcomed the return of the Heavenly Emperor. Gu Donglio's voice was solemn as he said this. He stood at another spot and was also bowing to Yi Futian. Dong Huang Diwen and the cultivators of the Divine Prefecture welcomed the return of the Heavenly Emperor. One by one, the leaders of each group greeted Yi Futian. Their voices reverberated in the heavens and the earth. The citizens of the city of Qingzhou were already numb from the excitement. What were they witnessing? The knees of the members of the Chao clan went weak as they slumped to the ground. Chao Yuan could not stop his body from trembling in fear. Yi Futian, the Heavenly Emperor, was being worshipped by the Tianshins. Master was not boasting, the youths in the city of Qingzhou thought. Master once said that his disciple could transform into the universe and bellow thunder. He was not exaggerating when he said that. Brother Yi was not boasting either. They murmured as they witnessed everything in awe. "Am I dreaming?" a youth asked. "It doesn't seem like you are," another person replied. "I knew from the start that Brother Yi was not an ordinary person." The young lady, who had always trusted Yi Futian's words, wiped away her tears of joy. Not only was he not ordinary, but he was also the Heavenly Emperor. Rumble. A terrifying aura pressed down, and a slit appeared in the sky. A menacing vortex loomed over the space. Through the slit, the heaven realm could be seen. The cultivators of the heaven realm were present too. Their leader sat on the divine throne of the heaven court. He looked high and mighty, as though he was the god who ruled over the entire world. "Who's this?" thought the citizens in the city of Qingzhou as their hearts raced. The person was like the Lord of the Nine Heavens as his god's might overwhelmed the space. He was seated on the divine throne and was worshipped by many cultivators. He was indeed a very powerful existence. "I did not expect you to make it back alive," Ji Wudao said to Yi Futian. His gaze pierced through the vast space as he lowered his head to look at Yi Futian. He sounded somewhat surprised. Yi Futian raised his head and cast a glance at Ji Wudao. He knew everything that Ji Wudao did all these years. The latter killed Lady Qin and Book Deity and ruled over the heaven realm by force. However, he did not go on a killing spree. He also helped protect the world from the invasion of the cultivators from the Empyrean. His sense of justice was still admirable. "Ji Wudao, what's your goal?" Yi Futian asked. The man seated on the throne was Ji Wudao. The citizens, especially the disciples in the Qingzhou Academy, were shocked when they heard Yi Futian addressing the other party. Even though they were not so familiar with the outside world, they had long heard of Ji Wudao's name. It was because he was the strongest cultivator in the world. Legend has it that Ji Wudao was the most powerful being globally. The youths in the academy had always joked around and said that they wanted to be the next Ji Wudao or his disciples. Now, the legendary figure had shown himself in front of them. Moreover, he was an acquaintance of Brother Yi. "What's my goal?" Ji Wudao muttered, seemingly asking himself the same question. Then he smiled and said, "In terms of seeking the path and becoming immortal, I have long achieved this goal. I am immortal now. I exist along with the heavens and the earth. I shine as brightly as the sun and the moon. My true goal is perhaps fulfilling my obsession. I want her to know that I can do better than you." "Why bother?" Yi Futian sighed. Then he announced, "I will sever your path of the emperor. You will be kicked out of the imperial realm. Be an ordinary cultivator from now on." Yi Futian sounded calm when he said this. It was as though he was just informing everyone of a usual occurrence. However, everyone in the Qingzhou Academy felt their hearts tremble violently. Yi Futian was talking about Ji Wudao here, the strongest cultivator in the world. Yi Futian wanted to sever his path of the emperor? Who in this world would dare spurt out such a bold statement? Ji Wudao rose from the divine throne. His gaze was terrifying. He cast a glance at Yi Futian. Immediately, Jiutian divine swords plummeted down. Countless swords of the heavenly emperor, containing God's might, traversed across the space and charged towards the city of Qingzhou. Yi Futian raised his head and gave the swords a stare. The swords instantaneously crumbled into nothingness. They disappeared without a trace. From the looks of it, you are now even more powerful than when you transformed into the heavenly path, Ji Wudao commented. However, you did not completely eradicate the human ancestor in the past. When he was trying to escape, I swallowed him whole. I refined him to improve myself. Now, I am the strongest in the world. Ji Wudao took a step forward as he declared, therefore, I can still defeat you even if you have transformed into the heavenly path. His domineering voice echoed throughout the space. As he said this, he extended his palm. A horrifying black hole was formed, and it expanded frenziedly. In an instant, the power of the black hole enveloped the vast space. The entire world was trembling. Rumble. Even though the people residing in the 9 states were extremely far away from the black hole, they could still sense the terrifying aura emanated by it. Everything on Earth seemed to be on the verge of collapsing and being sucked into the black hole. If you have transformed into the heavenly path, I shall swallow the entire heaven, Ji Wudao declared loudly. Beams of divine light from the black hole shot up into the clouds. The whole world was shaking. Countless people were astonished by this. This was the strongest figure in the world, Ji Wudao. Black lightning pierced through the space. Even the heavenly path trembled in its wake. Yi Futian looked up. With a shift of his will, everything in the world seemed to stop, including the destructive black lightning and the terrifying vortex that wanted to consume the heavenly path. Time and space, separate. As Yi Futian uttered these words, Ji Wudao's attacks seemed to exist in a separate dimension from the rest of the world. Time and space were distorted. Then Yi Futian lifted a finger. A beam of light shot out from his fingertip towards the black hole. An intense light radiated outwards after that. In an instant, everything in the world seemed to return to its initial silence. Time and space collapsed and shattered. Ji Wudao watched all of this in astonishment. When time and space returned to normal, the destructive power that he unleashed had already disappeared without a trace. His path had been destroyed. Ji Wudao let out a dull groan as he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His face was pale as the aura on his body kept dwindling. Ji Wudao, you are banished from the imperial realm for life, decreed Yi Futian. His word was the decree of the heavens. The members of the city of Qingzhou looked up at the sky. The mighty ruler of the heaven realm, the strongest cultivator in the world, had his path of the emperor severed with a finger. That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.